We're about to dive into some of the ugliest foreign tractors that you didn't know existed. These bizarre beasts might just have you question that old saying about beauty. Each one of these odd machines has its own quirky charm and some surprising stories. From Soviet steel giants to awkward European designs, these unsung heroes of the fields definitely broke the mold. Let's roll right into it. Number 10 is the Deutz F1 M414. Out of Germany. Produced from 1936 to the early 50s, the Deutz F1 M414 was among the first mass-produced small diesel tractors in Germany, often called the Deutz 11, referencing its approximate 11 horsepower single-cylinder engine. At just a glance, its squat proportions and exposed flywheel make it stand out, though an eyesore also might spring to mind before icon. Instead of sleek lines or finely sculpted bodywork, what you get is a compact hulk of clanking metal that looks half tractor, half industrial art project. This odd appearance was partly due to its minimalist design. Engineers aimed for a sturdy, no-frills machine that a rural farmer could afford and maintain with basic tools. While modern eyes may judge it as ugly, that big external flywheel and tall exhaust pipe weren't aesthetic choices so much as a practical solution. The open design let you reach crucial mechanical components more easily, which came in handy when you had to fix something out in the field. But despite its diminutive size, this tractor was a workhorse for small-scale farming tasks like plowing modest plots, hauling light loads, or powering stationary equipment through a belt pulley. Its diesel engine was an innovation in a market still brimming with hot bulb and gasoline tractors. Farmers quickly took to it because the diesel offered better fuel efficiency and, in many cases, longer engine life. Simple to operate and surprisingly tough, it became a mainstay on many smaller farms across Germany and beyond. Its cultural significance can't be overlooked. Arriving between two world wars and persisting well after World War II, the F1 M414 helped jumpstart mechanization for farmers who might otherwise have been stuck with horses or older, less reliable tractors. If you comb through European tractor collector forums or historical farm machinery catalogs, you'll see this little bruiser pop up again and again. A testament to how something that's certainly not a visual masterpiece can still become a beloved piece of agricultural history. Yeah, it's a bit of a funny-looking contraption, but it embodies that no-nonsense spirit of early diesel tech that forever changed farming landscapes. Number 9, the Lamborghini DL30 series. Now, when you hear the name Lamborghini, you probably envision exotic sports cars tearing up a racetrack. Yet Ferruccio Lamborghini's empire actually began with tractors in the late 40s. Enter the Lamborghini DL30 series, introduced in the early 1950s, a far cry from the sleek sports cars that later defined the brand. Boxy metal panels, large exposed engine components, and a stubby front end combined to make this tractor one of the oddest sights in the fields of post-war Italy. Powering the DL30 series was an air-cooled diesel engine, typically a 2- or 3-cylinder unit that provided modest horsepower. Though unimpressive by modern standards, it was more than enough to handle the small-scale farming that dominated much of the Italian countryside at that time. The distinctive Lamborghini badge on the tractor's side often sparked jokes among onlookers, with many never imagining that this same name would become synonymous with high-end luxury and outrageous automotive design. Despite its somewhat ungainly appearance, the DL30 series served a pivotal role. Italy's agricultural sector was rebuilding after World War II, and machinery like this helped small farms replace animal labor and boost efficiency. The awkward shape was partly due to the direct, no-nonsense design approach. Minimal bodywork, easy engine access, and straightforward control panels. For farmers, beauty took a back seat to practicality. Yet this unglamorous tractor had a cultural impact that still pops. It established the Lamborghini name as a reliable manufacturer of tough, practical machines. Ferruccio Lamborghini's success in the tractor business gave him the financial freedom to later dabble in sports car production, changing automotive history forever. So while the DL30 series won't win any style awards, it played a starring role in farming's modernization and laid the foundations for one of the world's most famous supercar brands. Number 8's the Volvo T24. Introduced in 1950, the Volvo T24 was Sweden's attempt at offering a robust yet cost-effective tractor for a farming community that was eager to modernize. At first glance, it's easy to see why it appears on any short list of ugly tractors. The boxy grille, coupled with a tall exhaust pipe sprouting incongruously from the side, gives it an almost forlorn appearance, like it can't decide if it's part truck or part lawnmower. Throw in the bulky fenders that dwarf its comparatively narrow front tires, and you've got a mismatch of proportions that just stands out for all the wrong reasons. Yet under the hood, the T24, that's no joke. Equipped with a 4-cylinder gasoline engine pushing about 25 horsepower, it offered enough grunt for a wide range of farm tasks. Volvo engineers emphasized simplicity and durability. creating a tractor that farmers can maintain with minimal fuss. Though parts of the bodywork looked awkward, that same design allowed for easy access to the engine, which was a big plus when making repairs out in a barn or in the field. The T24 holds a certain nostalgic value in Sweden, largely because it arrived when the country was stepping up its agricultural game post-World War II. With competition from established German and British brands, Volvo had to ensure that their tractors were not only functional, but also built to handle Scandinavian terrain and weather conditions. In many ways, the T24 delivered, just not in the looks department. Culturally, the T24 is remembered as a stepping stone, helping Swedish farmers transition away from older iron horses or even animal labor, offering a dependable, albeit unrefined, piece of machinery. If you sift through old Swedish farming catalogs or poke around local tractor clubs, you'll see the T24 is discussed as one of those, hey, it got the job done, machines. Despite the clunky exterior, it laid crucial groundwork for Volvo's later efforts in agricultural machinery. Love it or hate it, the T24 left its tread marks on Swedish farmland and remains a curiosity for collectors seeking a reminder of simpler, if not exactly prettier, times. Number 7, the Kirovets K-700. Introduced in 1962 by the Kirov factory in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, the Kirovets K-700 is a beast that demands attention, and not always in a flattering way. With its massive box-like structure perched atop an articulated body, it looks more like a military vehicle than a farm implement. This Soviet-built colossus was designed for heavy-duty work in the vast wheat fields of the USSR, so aesthetics took a back seat to brute force. Powered by a sizable V8 diesel engine, the K-700 turned out horsepower that dwarfed other tractors of the era. This power came with a unique articulation in the middle of the frame, allowing it to pivot when steering. Now, while that articulation made it maneuverable for its size, it also gave the tractor an awkward stance, like a giant insect bending in the middle. Its tall exhaust stack, gigantic tires, and angular hood only added to its imposing, if not downright intimidating, presence. Though Western eyes often found it ungainly and rough around the edges, the K-700 held a significant place in Soviet agriculture. It was the workhorse for large collective farms, plowing massive tracts of land and hauling enormous trailers full of crops. In many ways, it symbolized the Soviet push for industrial might and self-sufficiency during the Cold War era. Outside the USSR, the K-700 garnered curiosity and a bit of ridicule for its utilitarian looks. But if you check old Soviet promotional films or modern-day tractor enthusiast sites, you'll see how highly it was regarded by those who valued sheer capability over curb appeal. Spare parts were relatively easy to come by in the Eastern Bloc, and its robust design helped it survive punishing conditions that could incapacitate other tractors. That is the K-700 story in a nutshell. Unstoppable power, questionable looks, and a long-lasting impact on the agricultural landscape across the former Soviet Union. Number 6 is the Ursus C-451. Emerging in the post-war period, the Ursus C-451 was essentially a licensed version of the venerable Lanz Bulldog, a hot-bulb, single-cylinder tractor design originating from Germany. Manufactured by Poland in the Ursus factory, the C-451 looked every bit as strange as its German cousin. That massive horizontal cylinder on the front, coupled with a tall, chimney-like exhaust funnel, gave it an ungainly profile. It was the type of machine that you could hear chugging a mile away. Unmistakable, but never exactly pretty. The heart of the Ursus C-451 was a large single-cylinder hot bulb engine. Firing it up required a somewhat archaic ritual, heating the cylinder head with a blowtorch before starting. Once running, though, it emitted a steady, thumping cadence that was music to some and noise to others. This old-school approach to engine technology might seem prehistoric today, but back then it gave farmers a reliable power source that could burn lower-grade fuels, an important factor in a cash-strapped Poland rebuilding from the ravages of war. Despite its unconventional shape and smoky exhaust, the C-451 was considered a pivotal tractor in Poland's rural development. By licensing its technology, Ursus was able to kickstart its own production lines more rapidly, ultimately transitioning into a more modern diesel engine in the later models. Even so, the older hot bulb design remained in service for quite a while, illustrating just how functional and durable it was. Culturally, you may say the C-451 was an icon of perseverance. Farmers who relied on these tractors often speak with nostalgia about the machine's unstoppable torque and its ability to keep running under less than ideal conditions. If you poke around Polish farming forums or vintage tractor clubs, you'll see pictures of lovingly restored C-451s, complete with that awkward chimney-like exhaust, reminding everyone that ugly, that can still get the job done. Number 5 is the Belarus MTZ-50. Launched in 1961 by the Minsk Tractor Works, what is now Belarus, the MTZ-50 was a familiar sight across Eastern Europe and beyond. Its utilitarian angular body panels and tall, narrow front grille gave it a clumsy stance, often earning it the nickname the Metal Mosquito among some Western observers. Still, looks aside, it was a machine that helped mechanize millions of acres of farmland in various parts of the world. Equipped with a 4-cylinder diesel engine, typically about 55 horsepower, the MTZ-50 wasn't about speed or style, it was about affordability and reliability. One of its big selling points was how simple the mechanical systems were to maintain. Farmers who had limited access to fancy diagnostic tools could strip down and rebuild major components with fairly basic equipment. This down-to-earth approach made the tractor particularly popular in developing countries, where cost-effectiveness often trumped aesthetics. Throughout the latter half of the 20th century, the MTZ-50 not only served the needs of the Soviet bloc, but it was also exported worldwide, reaching places as far-flung as Latin America and Africa. That global presence boosted the Belarus brand name, to the point that Belarus tractor became almost a generic term for sturdy, low-frills machines in some circles. Historically, the MTZ-50 paved the way for subsequent Belarus tractors, which continued the tradition of utilitarian design. Even though some folks would shake their heads at the ungainly hood and protruding headlights, owners valued the rugged build quality and bare-bones practicality. If you browse old agricultural journals or modern online repositories, you'll come across countless accounts of these machines soldiering on under extreme conditions, be it Siberian winters or subtropical heat. In short, the MTZ-50 may never win a beauty pageant, but it's earned its stripes by simply refusing to quit. Number 4 is the Fortritt ZT300. Fortschritt, meaning progress in German, was the agricultural machinery brand of East Germany. In 1967, they unveiled the ZT300, an odd-looking tractor that sported a tall, blocky hood and a wide, flattened front grille. This wasn't a sleek design meant to wow onlookers, it was a straightforward workhorse for state-owned collective farms. The boxy exterior and large rear wheels made it appear top-heavy, while the squared-off cab gave it an almost bunker-like vibe. Now, engine-wise, the ZT300 typically ran on a 4-cylinder diesel with about 90 horsepower, enough muscle for moderate to heavy farm tasks. One highlight was its robust rear axle and decent load capacity, which made it suitable for pulling trailers and operating implements in fields that needed extensive tillage. The tractor's high ground clearance and sturdy suspension allowed it to negotiate the uneven terrain common in rural East Germany. Now, while the ZT300's appearance might make design critics cringe, it held a prestigious place in the agricultural sector of the German Democratic Republic, or GDR. It signified self-reliance and industrial know-how at a time when East Germany was eager to demonstrate its capabilities. A large number of these tractors were produced for domestic use, and some even found their way into other Eastern Bloc countries. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and Germany's reunification, many ZT300s lingered on farms, testifying to the durability of their no-nonsense construction. If you dig through museum archives or vintage tractor meetups in Eastern Europe, you'll find references to the ZT300 as a relic of communist-era engineering. Despite its less than inspiring looks, the tractor remains a touchstone of East German agricultural history. Unmistakable, unglamorous, yet perfectly functional for the tasks it was built to handle. Number 3 is the David Brown 2D. When David Brown, an established English gear manufacturer, moved into tractor production, it brought forth several distinctive models. The David Brown 2D, introduced in the mid-50s, stands out for its odd skeletal look, instead of a traditional engine layout encased by a hood. Now, the 2D placed its engine in a narrow, open-sided frame that left many mechanical components exposed. To some, it appeared half-finished, as though the assembly line just called it quits before the body panels got added. Beneath the minimalist design, the 2D housed a small diesel engine that offered around 16 horsepower, although variants and later modifications occasionally bumped that number a bit. Meant primarily for light tasks like market gardening or horticulture, it had decent maneuverability and an unusually light footprint. Those features made it a niche favorite among operators who needed to navigate tight rows or greenhouse paths without churning up the ground. This tractor's weird aesthetics, though, they weren't just for show. Designers aimed for easy maintenance and a clear line of sight when working close to delicate crops. By keeping the engine accessible, farmers could quickly reach vital parts without dismantling major components. That said, the lack of protective panels also meant that the 2D could look awkward and a little vulnerable in harsher conditions. Though David Brown tractors never achieved the global ubiquity of certain American brands, the company enjoyed respect in Britain and other parts of Europe. The 2D, for all its strangeness, contributed to this reputation by showcasing a willingness to experiment with design solutions suited for specific farming needs. If you talk to horticulturalists and vintage tractor collectors, you'll find many who sing its praises for reliability and simplicity. Yeah, it might resemble a mechanical oddity rather than a full-fledged tractor, but that quirkiness only adds to its nostalgic charm. Number 2, the Renault D22. Debuting in the mid-50s, the Renault D22 was a departure from the French automaker's more familiar automotive lineup. If you ever spotted one, you'll recognize it by its tall, kind of boxy hood and large front grille that look perpetually surprised. The design often seemed mismatched, with the front end sitting higher than the rest of the tractor, giving it a gawky shape. Add in the rounded rear fenders that curved awkwardly, and you get a tractor that appeared pieced together from leftover parts rather than sculpted in a design studio. Now, under the metal skin, however, the D22 was packed with practicality. Typically powered by a 2-cylinder diesel engine, pushing about 20 to 25 horsepower. It excelled at light to medium farm chores like plowing small fields or pulling modest loads. The engine's relatively simple design made it approachable for farmers who prefer doing their own basic maintenance. That mechanical accessibility boosted the tractor's appeal at a time when many rural French communities were transitioning away from draft animals. Culturally, the D22 represented Renault's effort to diversify beyond cars and trucks, tapping into Europe's post-war agricultural boom. Now, while it didn't transform the industry overnight, it did play a respectable role in helping smaller French farms modernize on a budget. If you glance through period advertisements or old black and white farm footage, you'll see Renault pushing the D-Series as solid, no-nonsense machines that promise better yields and easier labor. Sure, style wasn't its strong suit. The D22 could appear homely alongside sleeker models from other manufacturers. But talk to a veteran French farmer and they'll often speak fondly of its reliability. Like so many of the ugly tractors, the D22's real charm was in getting the job done with minimal downtime. So if you visit a French vintage tractor exhibition or browse enthusiast forums, you'll see this awkward yet beloved machine on display. Living proof that if you're plowing a field, performance and dependability usually matter far more than good looks. Number 1, the Hanomag WD. Now, tracing its roots back to the early 1900s, the Hanomag WD series was among the pioneering diesel-powered farm tractors produced by Hannoversche Maschinenbau AG in Germany. Characterized by a tall front-mounted radiator and a bulky riveted metal frame, the WD looked more like a steam-era relic than a modern tractor. Some models sported a massive flywheel on the side, which gave the entire machine a lopsided and ungainly silhouette. If you walked up to one for the first time, you might wonder if it was cobbled together from spare locomotive parts. But beneath its awkward exterior, however, the WD series housed a technological marvel for its day. An early diesel engine that proved simpler and more cost-effective than the steam tractors it replaced. This innovation was crucial in helping many European farms transition to internal combustion power. While other manufacturers were dabbling in gasoline or hot bulb engines, Hanomag's diesel offered a more efficient fuel burn, a trait that quickly earned the brand a solid reputation. Now, during the interwar period and into the mid-1900s, these tractors helped mechanize a region that was still reliant on animal labor. The WD's endurance was legendary. Farmers could run it for lengthy stretches with relatively minimal maintenance. But let's be honest, it wasn't winning any beauty pageants. Photos from the era showed the WD's towering radiator protruding from a slender body that seemed an afterthought. Coupled with large spoked steel wheels in earlier versions, even as rubber tires became more common, that tall rectangular radiator and somewhat clumsy form never fully shed their archaic vibe. Culturally, the Hanomag WD stood for progress during a pivotal time in European agriculture. If you dig through historical archives or collector sites, you'll find countless references to these lumbering giants as the bedrock of many farms' fortunes. At a time when diesel power was the new frontier, Hanomag's peculiar design led to change, proving that sometimes the ugliest ducklings can make the biggest impact in the pond. Hey, these 10 ugly foreign tractors remind us that function often trumps form, especially out in the field. Each helps shape agricultural progress in its own way, turning hard work into something slightly less backbreaking for farmers all around the world. We hope you found this video both entertaining and helpful in exploring these forgotten beasts from the 1900s. If you enjoy digging into some of the strangest corners of farming history, subscribe to the channel and join us for more nostalgic deep dives. After all, nothing beats remembering just how far we've come and sometimes how oddly we got here. Happy tractor spotting!